Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down the NBA DFS slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel. We have a 9 game slate tonight, as we often do on Fridays, locking at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I'm going to do my best to go through game by game and do it rather quickly. I have the 10:30 a.m. Injury report up right now, and that's the order I'm going to go by. So I'll talk through each team. I'll let you guys know my favorite plays on both sites. And let's see here. I'll also slowly start to build lineups as I talk through these games, so you guys kind of know where I stand and what my favorite plays are. Also, which injuries we need to keep an eye on, and what to do if certain players are ruled out. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Also, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This helps us get more of this free content out to you. If you're not already a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. You get access to the model you see here, which I'll be using throughout the video, where you can sort by value for both sites, ownership projections. We have our own proprietary OF index. We also have a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder, private Discord server full of DFS pros to help you improve your game, including a 30-minute window leading up to each slate's lock where you could ask your slate and lineup specific questions. All right, so let's get into it here. First game on the slate, we have the New Orleans Pelicans at the Orlando Magic. The Pelicans are 1 point favorites on the road at Orlando. Um, so on the Pelicans side of the ball, still no Brandon Ingram, still no Zion Williamson. Herbert Jones is questionable, and Najee Marshall is also questionable. So obviously a good matchup here for New Orleans. With no Zion or Ingram, I'm certainly interested in CJ McCollum. I mean, he hasn't been as popular as expected with these guys out. He's still sub 9K on both sites. I like him a lot here. We're getting him in a spot where he's finally up against a soft defense. New Orleans has had some tough matchups lately. I can see penciling him in right now. I mean, it's the first game on the slate, so maybe I pull him by the end of this video. But kind of in this shell that I'm building, I do think CJ is going to be one of the better plays. Um, so Najee Marshall's been excellent. I've been playing him a ton. The model likes him here as well. You see the high ownership on both sites. He's questionable. If he is out, and Herb Jones is out as well, then Trey Murphy is going to become exceptional here. So definitely keep an eye on that. As things stand, I do like Najee Marshall best on the wing for New Orleans, but again, he's questionable. He could very well be out. The good news is this is the first game on the slate, so we will have that news. Jonas Valanciunas, there's tons of good centers on the slate. No surprise there. He's too cheap on DK though at 6,800. More of a tournament play in my opinion. Gets into foul trouble sometimes. The minutes aren't always there for them, for him rather. And with Larry Nance healthy, we do see them split center minutes on occasion. So I like Joval here, but I would reserve him only for tournaments. But again, CJ is pretty much a priority for me, especially at sub 10% on both sites. Really like Najee Marshall if he's in. If he's out, Trey Murphy becomes appealing, and we have to keep an eye on Herbert Jones here as well. He's missed the past few games. If he's out again, we could see Dyson Daniels start, who would become a viable value option. Very scoring dependent though, so he's boom bust in similar fashion to Joval. I also do like Jose Alvarado, assuming he starts at point guard. His price is up a bit, but if you're lacking value, I don't mind him as kind of a last man in. Just keep in mind if you are using players from the first game, it does make it tougher to late swap and pivot as we move through the night. So over on the Orlando side of the ball, let's see here. We have Jonathan Isaac still in the G League. Chuma Okiki is out. Franz Wagner is questionable. So they're pretty healthy. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. looks solid. 6,200 on DK, 6,600 on FanDuel. He's probably the most appealing play here for Orlando. It's not a bad matchup with New Orleans. Obviously, we have the close spread. This is a good game environment. Don't mind Banchero. Fultz looks good on DK, but I'm really not prioritizing anything from Orlando as things stand. I do like Carter on FanDuel where you're getting him with power forward eligibility. I don't want to use that center slot up for Wendell Carter Jr., but if I can use him at power forward, I'm certainly more likely to get to him there. But Orlando looks good here. No major injuries, though. If Franz is out, I think that would create more usage for the rest of the starters. Um, Namely Paulo Banchero, I think, but he is in that mid 7K range. So even so, I don't know that you have to force him in. But yeah, my favorite play, I guess, from Orlando is Wendell Carter Jr. I do like faults on DK as well, but no major priorities from Orlando. They just have so many mouths to feed there now with that team getting healthy. It's just tough to know on a given night who's going to go off. So we can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers hosting the Golden State Warriors. Cavs are 7.5 point favorites at home. I'll start on the Golden State side. They're on a back-to-back here, so there is no injury report out yet for them. It wouldn't be surprising to see someone like Steph or Wiggins rested on the back-to-back, or Klay Thompson. So keep an eye on this. If one of these big usage players is ruled out, I think the others become more appealing. It's not a great matchup against Cleveland, regardless. You kind of see that reflected in the ownership here. There's no one really getting over 1 or 2%. But if a few of these guys are ruled out, maybe you could get to Dante DiVincenzo, maybe Anthony Lamb as a value play. But as things stand, there's just no priorities for me from Golden State. Really tough matchup with Cleveland. And when they're healthy, it's just not something I'm ever rushing to get to. Obviously, Steph has a high ceiling, but yeah, I don't need to tell you that. On the Cleveland side of the ball, Donovan Mitchell's questionable. Dean Wade is out. Dylan Windler's also out. So if Donovan Mitchell's in, I think he looks good here. 8,900 on DK feels a bit too cheap. Like the 9,100 over on FanDuel as well. If he's out, we could obviously turn to Darius Garland, who had a 50-point fantasy performance last time out with Mitchell out of the lineup. Garland's going to look good here if Mitchell's out. Borderline priority for me. We'd also get a lot of Karis LeVert. If Mitchell is out, he'd slide into the starting lineup and soak up a lot of that usage. One sneaky value play I've been using lately is Isaac Okoro. Certainly not safe, but he is getting starter minutes, and he has been hitting value even with Mitchell in the lineup. So if you're desperate for value, I don't mind Okoro here. The front court looks fine. Mobley, Allen, both priced reasonably. Mobley a little bit more affordable on both sites, but Allen probably the higher ceiling. I think they're both fine. But keep an eye on this Mitchell news. If he's out, keep an eye on the starting lineup. I think Karis LeVert would just slide in where he become exceptional. And then if Kevin Love were to start for whatever reason, he would become more appealing here as well. But really, as things stand, if Mitchell's healthy, there's no priorities for me on Cleveland. But it is a decent spot against Golden State, with Golden State being on the back-to-back. Moving into the next game on the slate, we have the Dallas Mavericks at the Miami Heat. Let's see here. The Mavericks are 1 point favorites at home. Just a 218.5 point total, though. So one of the lower totals on the slate. I'll start on the Dallas side of the ball. We're looking at Tim Hardaway Jr. coming back. He is probable. Christian Wood is out. Maxi Kleber's out. So they're very thin in the front court. This should create more opportunity for someone like Dwight Powell. The issue is he's just not a very good fantasy producer. I could see using him as a punt on FanDuel, where you're getting him at power forward at just 3,800. 3K flat on DK. It's not going to take much for him to hit value, so I can see getting to him over there. But again, really not a priority. With Hardaway coming back, I'm less interested in Dorian Finney-Smith. Finney-Smith is cheaper than we usually see him on both sites, though. You can see that ownership on DK north of 20%. Not something I'm excited to get to on a massive slate, north of 20%. But yeah, I do imagine we get more value to open up throughout the day. Obviously, Luka's great if you can afford him. Tough matchup with Miami. He's been a little bit inconsistent lately, but it's still Luka Doncic. His ceiling is as high as any play on the slate. But really, no priorities for me here from Dallas with Tim Hardaway Jr. returning tonight. Over on the Miami side of the ball, let's take a look here. Haslam is probable, obviously not a needle mover. Duncan Robinson's still out. Omer Yurtseven, Nikola Jovic, Jamal Cain. So they're healthy. The Heat are another one of these teams. When they're healthy, they're just really tough to want to get to in DFS. They all look fine here. I like the matchup for Bam, especially against that soft front court. But it's tough to know on a given night which one of these guys is going to go off. I do like the Jimmy Butler price of 8,300 over on DK. Don't mind Tyler Hero. His price still feels a bit too low, but he hasn't really flashed that ceiling since returning from injury. So no priorities for me from Miami. They don't look bad, but unless some of these guys get ruled out, they're just tough to prioritize, while we have other teams with injuries creating opportunity throughout the rest of the slate. So moving into the next game, we have the Atlanta Hawks at the New York Knicks. The Hawks are 3 point favorites at home, hosting New York. 228 point total here. So start on the Hawks side of the ball. Let's see. Bogdanovich is questionable. Trey Young is questionable. I imagine they both play. Obviously, Trey loves to play in the Garden. This is a home game, though. But if Trey is out, DeJounte Murray is going to become exceptional here, especially if Bogdan's out as well. So keep an eye on this one. Um, I like Murray regardless. I think Trey Young's fine regardless. But again, if either's ruled out, I mean, if Young or Bogdan are ruled out, Murray would become even more appealing. If Bogdan's ruled out and both of the guards are in, that is a slight bump to their usage. But it would be tough to prioritize them against a decent defensive team in New York. Clint Capella's back. He's been on a minutes limit, so that kind of takes Okongwu out of consideration. I'm still not getting to Capella, even though he's cheap. Again, he's still on that minutes limit, so I'm just not rushing to get to him there. DeAndre Hunter's fine as kind of a secondary option. I don't mind John Collins either. I prefer Trey Young to be ruled out to get to either of them, though. So if this team is healthy, I really don't have all that much interest. Collins does feel too cheap, though, at 6K flat on FanDuel. Only is that right? Only 5.5 over on TK. So maybe you could pencil Collins in over there. Again, I would prefer someone be ruled out for me to want to get to him here. That extra usage with Trey out of the lineup would be really nice for someone like John Collins. He seems to be on the trade block right now, but Atlanta says they want a Rudy Gobert-like return to ship him. So I don't know how serious they are about moving him, but yeah, 5,500 is too cheap even with Capella back in the lineup. And then yeah, 20% on FanDuel, no surprise over there as well. I think he's fine there. But again, if Atlanta's healthy, no priorities. If Trey and or Bogdan are out, they're all going to look better, especially DeJounte Murray. So keep an eye on that Atlanta Hawks news for sure. On the next side of the ball, there is some significant news here. Mitchell Robinson's out, so we need to keep an eye on the starting lineup. As things stand, it looks like we're projecting Isaiah Hartenstein to get the nod at center. If it is him, I do like him as a value play on both sides, especially FanDuel, where you're getting that power forward eligibility. Again, there is kind of some risk in going to a cheap center on a big slate like this. We saw it last night with Naz Reid. He had a decent game in the second half, was terrible in the first half. But yeah, it was pretty easy to climb up a leaderboard if you faded Naz last night. Not saying that's going to be the situation here with Hartenstein. But at the same time, I mean, just keep an eye on the ownership. If the ownership gets out of hand on a 9-game slate, then you obviously don't need to eat this type of chalk. In cash games, you do. I love Hartenstein here at 4K on FanDuel. I think he looks really good. I'd prefer him to start, though. Over on DK, he's cheaper, but you're also using that center spot. But at 3K flat, if he starts, he's very, very tough to get away from. But keep an eye on that. We have seen Jericho Sims at times get the start over Isaiah Hartenstein. If that is the case, I still slightly prefer Hartenstein, but it certainly wouldn't feel as good. I'd probably lower my exposure and get a little bit of Jericho Sims. I don't want them both in the same lineup, but really, until we get more value to open up, this front court for New York is one of the best places to look for value. Like RJ Barrett here, Julius Randle should see a little bit of a bump in rebound opportunity with Mitchell out, so he looks fine. Haven't been getting to Grimes quickly anymore since RJ Barrett's been back, but Barrett does help fill a void at a thin small forward position. You see that reflected in the ownership here. So yeah, RJ Barrett, really solid option. Don't mind Randall. Jalen Brunson's been excellent all season. There's just a ton of good guard plays on the slate, so I'm not rushing to get to him there. But really, Isaiah Hartenstein is the priority as things stand. But keep an eye on that starting lineup. If Sim gets the start and he's going to be lower owned, I could certainly see making that pivot in tournaments. Moving into the 8 o'clock window in the next game on the slate, we have the Spurs hosting the Clippers. The Clippers are 7-point favorites on the road. Um, let's see. Luke Kennard is out. John Wall is out. Moses Brown is out. But Kawhi and George are not on the injury report. So as things stand, I mean, this is about as healthy as the Clippers have been all season. I know I just listed a few guys that are out, but it's rare we see both George and Kawhi in the lineup. They both look fine here. Really not loving the 10-3 price on Kawhi. That's almost impossible for me to want to get to. 9,400 on FanDuel is tough to stomach as well. 8,500 for Paul George on FanDuel, though. I do like that a lot. This is an excellent matchup against a soft San Antonio defense. 9,100 on DK. Don't mind that either. Yeah, I mean, other than those two, I'm really not rushing to anything from the Clippers. We have seen Terrence Mann getting the starts at point guard. You could go there, really just not someone I'm rushing to. Zubac, kind of similar to Joval, who I described earlier. He has a very high ceiling, but a very low floor. If you want to take that type of risk in tournaments, I could see getting to him as your center. But with both George and Kawhi in the lineup, it's really tough to prioritize anything else. Again, I do like Paul George's price a lot more than Kawhi's. Obviously, Kawhi, a bit better of a fantasy producer, but I don't know. It's just tough to stomach that price tag on a 9 game slate for Leonard. So nothing I'm really rushing to from the Clippers. Over on the Spurs side of the ball, let's take a look here. Charles Bassey's out. Still no Devin Vassell. That's all the real significant news here. With Vassell on the lineup, we see increased usage to Keldon Johnson. His price is up on both sides. I still kind of like him, but he's a little bit tougher to get to now that he's over 7K. Trey Jones at 6,500 on both sides looks good here. Um, Solid point guard option. There's a ton of good guards on this slate, so I don't know that we need to go there. On FanDuel, I like him a little bit more at 6,500 than I do over on DK. So maybe I pencil him in there. And I know I got McCollum at point guard, but I'll move him to shooting guard just to give us a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, just starting to build a shell of these lineups. And obviously, throughout the day, as we get more news, things are going to change. Like I'm recording this, it's now 10:50 Eastern. If you play this lineup tonight, unless all the news breaks our way, I don't know that it's going to be as viable as it is right now. But these are the plays I'm certainly keeping an eye on. What else from San Antonio? I mean, Josh Richardson's fine. Not someone I'm ever rushing to get to. We've seen decent games out of Zach Collins at 3,800 on DK. I don't mind him as a punt in tournaments. Jeremy Sochan has a pretty high ceiling. His price is up though. But yeah, I mean, San Antonio's fine here. Just a tough matchup against the Clippers. No real priorities. I could see getting to Podol. There's just better centers on the slate. So no major priorities for me from San Antonio, except maybe Trey Jones over on FanDuel. Sochan looks fine, but he's a little bit inconsistent. So I probably wouldn't go to him in cash or single entry. Moving into the 9 o'clock window now, we have the Utah Jazz hosting the Brooklyn Nets. The Jazz are 7.5 point favorites at home, 229 point game total here. So I'll start with the Nets. Still no Kevin Durant. They're on a back to back. Yeah, I think Kyrie plays. He looked really good in the second half last night. Had a terrible first half, and then he found his shot. So I would be happy to get to him here, especially on FanDuel at 9,200. The 9,900 on DK is a little bit tougher to stomach, but I don't mind Kyrie on a back-to-back. Just keep an eye on that. They have rested him on the occasional back-to-back, but they really could use a win here. They fought hard last night, almost came back and won, but they did not get there. So I'll pencil Kyrie in over on FanDuel. Ben Simmons got ejected mid-game. He looks fine here. Nick Claxton, good matchup with Olynyk out for Utah. This is a pretty soft front court. Not that Olynyk is really defensive stalwart or anything, but yeah, I do like the matchup for Claxton. Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris seemed to find his shot last night as well. So if you're desperate for value, I could see getting there. But again, the Nets are on a back-to-back, so no injury report yet for them. So we have to keep an eye on this. Assuming they're all healthy and playing, I do like Kyrie. I don't mind Ben Simmons or Claxton or Royce O'Neal or Joe Harris's value, but I wouldn't call any of them other than Kyrie on FanDuel a priority. 9,900 on DK, a little bit tougher to stomach on Irving, but I do think I could get to him in tournaments over there. So definitely keep an eye on that one. No injury report yet for the Nets. Over on the Utah side of the ball, the only significant injury news here is Kelly Olynyk being out. 5,700 for Walker Kessler. Not drawing as much ownership as I'd expect. I could see penciling him in over here. I don't want to use up both center spots, but I mean, as far as value goes, I do think Kessler is one of the better value plays over on DK. The Nets historically have not done well against centers in fantasy. I mean, Nick Claxton blocks a ton of shots, but that doesn't really prevent opposing centers from scoring fantasy points. So I do like Kessler on DK. The 7,900 price on FanDuel is just out of hand. I can't see getting to him there. Utah is healthy now, though, so Conley looks fine, where he's sub 6K on both sides. Malik Beasley's okay, probably coming off the bench now that Clarkson, Conley, Sexton, Markkanen are all healthy. Laurie's price finally came up on FanDuel. He's 8,700 over there. I think he's fine. Can't stomach the 9,500 on DK. So really nothing I'm forcing from Utah, except for maybe Kessler on DraftKings. Moving into the next game on the slate, we have the Denver Nuggets hosting the Indiana Pacers. Um, I'll start on Denver. Let's see here. So on the Denver side of the ball, obviously Jokic is one of the best plays on the slate. Any slate he's on, he's one of the best plays on the slate. So really no surprise there. I will say there is at least minor blowout concern with the Nuggets being at home. It's an 11-point spread. I think it's the widest spread on the slate. So keep an eye on that. But regardless, I mean, Jokic's ceiling in this matchup is exceptional. He could completely go off here, and I like him a lot if you can fit him. But at the same time, I do currently favor a balance build a little bit more, just as things stand until we get more value. But as more value opens up throughout the day, it'll be easier to get to someone like Jokic. So I just want to emphasize that he's a really, really good play here. Jamal Murray on both sites, like him better on DK at 6,600, 7,400 on FanDuel feels like a more accurate price for him. So yeah, if we need a guard over on over on DK, I do like Murray. Um, let's see, he's questionable on the DK site, but ignore that Q tag. He is listed as probable on the injury report. No other real priorities for me here, unless someone else gets ruled out for Denver. Uh, no major injuries, so it's just tough to prioritize anything outside of Jokic and Murray. On the Indiana side of the ball, they are still without Tyrese Halliburton. They likely will be for a few more games. That's the one real piece of injury news we have to keep an eye on. TJ McConnell's price is up on both sides. 6,900 on FanDuel, can't go there. 5,800 on DK. I don't mind him in tournaments. He's shown he has a ceiling even with limited minutes. Not someone I'm ever rushing to get to though. Don't mind Mathurin. Very scoring dependent though, wide range of outcomes. Same with Andrew Nemhard. Tough to prioritize either of these guys. Don't mind Miles Turner over on DK, but even with Halliburton out, all the prices are up on these Pacers now, so they're just tougher for me to want to get to. I do like Buddy Hield. He's not owned at all. He is one of the better scorers on this team, seeing very high usage rate with Halliburton out of the lineup. Probably my favorite Pacer as things stand, but TJ has flashed a very high ceiling, even in limited minutes, so I don't mind him over on DraftKings. Moving into the 10 o'clock window, a couple more games here. We have the Lakers hosting the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 7-point favorites on the road. No major injury news for Memphis here. So no key rotational pieces are hurt, unless we get something to break throughout the day. I think that holds. Um, I like John Bull sites. 9,600 feels a little bit too cheap over on DK. 10K certainly reasonable on FanDuel. Desmond Bane's fine as a tournament play. Much more appealing on DraftKings where he's 7K flat. Dylan Brooks very scoring dependent. Not someone I'm prioritizing, but he does have a ceiling. If you're playing multiple lineups, I could see getting to him. Steven Adams, solid price on both sites. Decent center play. But yeah, a lot of good centers on the slate, so I don't know we have to get to them there. Jaren Jackson, another decent tournament option. Memphis is just another one of these teams like Miami. When they're healthy, it's tough to know who's going to go off on a given night. Obviously, John Morant's the alpha in this offense, so I'd probably get to him the most. But yeah, it is a good matchup with the Lakers. I don't mind these guys. It's tough to prioritize anything when they have their whole rotation healthy. So I like Adams on both sites, but center's loaded tonight. I like Morant on both sites, but guards loaded tonight. So I will get to some of these guys, but I wouldn't say either are like top priority plays. Um, Over on the Lakers side of the ball, LeBron James is questionable. He's questionable every day, though. I think he's going to be in here. Still no Lonnie Walker. Still no Austin Reeves. Anthony Davis still out here as well. So if LeBron's in, he's one of the better pay-ups on the slate, even against a tough Memphis defense. I do like the Lakers being at home. That should keep the game competitive. Dennis Schroeder's price at 4,900 on FanDuel certainly feels too cheap, so maybe I pencil him in over there. I think he's shooting guard eligible as well. Yep, so that's nice. We're filling in the backcourt over here. And yeah, we still got 6K per player left over on FanDuel. Kendrick Nunn's had some decent games. Don't mind him as a punt. Patrick Beverly, never a great fantasy producer. It's really LeBron for me here. It seems people have fallen out of favor with Thomas Bryant. He was super popular with AD out the first couple weeks. Davis was out of the lineup. I mean, I guess the box scores are kind of keeping people off of him, understandably so. So I'm not going to get to Thomas Bryant here. But yeah, no major priorities. I don't hate Russ Westbrook in this spot. He just feels a little bit overpriced compared to some of the other guards we have on the slate. So LeBron's the priority here. I do like Schroeder over on FanDuel, but it is a tough matchup with Memphis. Moving into the last game on the slate, we have the Kings hosting the Thunder. The Kings are 3-point favorites at home. There is significant injury news here. Domantas Sabonis is still questionable for Sacramento, as is Alex Len. If both are out and we see Rashawn Holmes starting in, he's going to become an exceptional value play. If Sabonis is in, I like him on both sites. If he's out, De'Aaron Fox needs a huge bump in his usage rate, so he'd become an excellent guard play everywhere. Harrison Barnes, kind of that last man in mid-range wing play. Could totally see getting to him. Don't mind Keegan Murray here as well, especially on DK as kind of a punt. More of a tournament option for me though. So we need to keep an eye on this news. If they're fully healthy, Sabonis is probably my favorite play, but if he's out, keep an eye on that starting lineup. I'd like Alex Len to be out as well so we could get to Rashawn Holmes and feel good about it. Trey Lyles at 4,100 on DK. If he were to get the start, he's fine as value. Kevin Huerter, kind of a boom bust guard play, very scoring dependent, regardless of who's in the lineup. So I don't mind him, but I wouldn't be rushing to get to him here. So yeah, keep an eye on the news for Sacramento. Sabonis, obviously the big piece we have to keep an eye on. Again, if he's out, would love me some De'Aaron Fox and whoever starts at center. On the Thunder side of the ball, let's see. Just thin in the front court. No Poku, no Jeremiah Robinson Earl, so no surprises here. I really like SGA on both sides. Giddy looks excellent. Just two solid options. Those are the two guys I'd be prioritizing. We did see Kenrich Williams get the start at center last time out. A little bit strange. I don't think I'd get to him tonight. Let's just check that game log, see if he did anything. I saw he started at center. It surprised me at the time, but I forgot to kind of follow up and check his game log. So I'm curious to see how he did. Wow, he went off. Only 22 minutes, but he had a double-double, a couple blocks and steals. So if we see Kenrich Williams starting at center, the minutes weren't there for him necessarily, but at 4,400 on DK, where you're getting him at either forward position, I think that's a really solid option. So maybe some Kenrich Williams over there. But yeah, other than that, it's SGA, it's Giddy. Lou Dort looks fine. Never a great fantasy producer though. At the ownership he's drawing, I'm really not excited to get to Lou Dort. I would definitely prefer to get to SGA or Giddy. But keep an eye on the starting lineup. If Kenrich Williams is the starting center, I don't mind him here. Even in limited minutes, he's shown he has upside. He could scoop a lot of rebounds, especially if Sabonis is out. So just taking a quick look at the slate as a whole. We got a good start here. Obviously, like I said, throughout the day, things are going to change. So I wouldn't write this in stone. But yeah, we get a good start to what we're building. Taking a quick look at the model, generally speaking here, sorting by OF index, which weighs most heavily upside, we're seeing Jokic, Doncic, SGA, LeBron, Sabonis. No surprises there. Again, if Sabonis is out, love De'Aaron Fox. Julius Randle should see a little bit of a boost with Mitchell Robinson out of the lineup. But yeah, no surprises really as far as the top plays on the slate go. Looking at ownership, we're seeing Hartenstein and Barrett get a lot. No surprise there. Keep an eye on that lineup for the Knicks. Obviously, we'd prefer Hartenstein be the starter. If he is, he's going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate. Jericho Sims would be your tournament pivot there. Finney Smith, I'm not totally excited to get to him there, but we're kind of lacking value. We're seeing similar ownership over on FanDuel. Mathurin feels a little bit over-owned, in my opinion, given how scoring dependent he is. Najee Marshall, very popular, but questionable. If he's out, again, Trey Murphy is a very easy pivot to make. So once again, my name is Nick Marro. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check the links in the description below to sign up to Occupy Fantasy today. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Good luck. Take care.